Hi, so I'm just here going over your review with you. Now, these aren't the only types of questions that are going to be on your quiz. There's also a question about the basic equation for an exponential function, and there's powers with the same base to solve for. So make sure that you go over those two things as well to prepare for your quiz. But here's the commentary on how to do these. In number one, the first thing you should notice is the negative sign, and that means that you have to do the reciprocal first. So I'm going to take the reciprocal of the entire inside. So that's going to be 1 over 7x all to the second power. Then don't forget that you got to square the top. So that would be 1 squared and square the bottom. So it would be 7 squared and x squared. Final answer, 1 over 49x squared. Make sure you circle your answer when you're done. Number 2, these are all being multiplied together. So you have to make sure that the 2 gets a third power, the x squared gets a third power, and the y to the 5th gets a third power. We know that 2 to the 3rd is 8. Power raised to a power, you're going to multiply, so that's x to the 6th. And power to a power is multiply, so y to the 15th. This one, the only thing that is holding that 0 power is the x. So this is really equal to 5 times 1, which is 5. Number 4. So the first thing that you want to do is divide your coefficients. So when you divide -8 and 4, you're going to get -2. I like to keep the base and subtract the exponents. So for the x's, I'm going to keep the x, and then I'm going to subtract these exponents. So this would be a -1 minus -4. Well, that's a +3. And then when I keep the base and subtract the exponents, I have 4 minus -4, which is 8. You don't have to adjust anything because there's no negative exponents after you subtract. In number 5, we're going to divide the coefficients, and that gives us -5. X to the 5th has a common base with x on the bottom, so I subtract those. So that's 5 minus 1. That's going to give me x to the 4th. And then y squared is still on the bottom. It's like chilling there all by itself, so we're just going to bring them over and bring it on the bottom. This one looks very tricky, and the reason why it's tricky is because you want to multiply this, but you can't until you exponent first. So you want to make sure that you get the exponent done first before you multiply. That's order of operations. So this 6 and times x squared times y to the 4th is going to be expanded by raising all of those to the 3rd power. Six to the 3rd is, I have no idea, 216. This is going to be power to a power you multiply, so that'd be x to the 6th. And power to a power, y to the 12th. That's not my final answer. That's just this box part. We then need to take this guy, and we need to multiply it by -2xy to the 4th. So I have to take my 216 and multiply by -2. That gives me -432. I'm going to put it over here. Keep the base and add the exponents when you're multiplying. So that's 1 exponent over here and 6 over here. So that should be x to the 7th. Keep the base, add the exponent. So y, 4 plus 12 is 16. Okay. For this one, there's a couple different ways to do it. I personally think that with the way this one is set up, I would multiply my coefficient. So 7 times -2 would be -14. I can keep the base because my bases are the same and add these exponents. So 4 plus -2 is a +2, and that would be your answer. This one. Remember, there's no rule for adding or subtracting. So you have to do the inside first, okay? So this is going to be 1/2 plus, this is going to be 1/2 to the third in parentheses. So 2 to the third is 1/8. Remember, we talked about this, how you have to have a common denominator here when you're adding. So I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 4 to get my common denominator. And this is 4/8 plus 1/8. That's going to give me 5/8, all raised to the -1. And remember that this negative on the outside of a fraction indicates reciprocal. So my final answer is 8/5. This one is a distributive property because there's no negative exponents. We're just going to distribute. We're going to multiply this outside term by everything in here. And when we do that, we multiply the coefficient. So 2 times 5 is 10. We keep the base and add the exponents. So I need 1/3 plus 6. Oh dear. Let's go down here. 1/3 plus 6. So that would be 1/3 plus 18/3, which is 19/3. Yes, you need to make sure that you add these exponents. Then we're going to do plus sign, and then we're going to distribute this one by multiplying the coefficients. So 2 times 3 is 6. Keep the base. Add the exponent. So I need now a 1/3 plus a 1/2. Common denominator is 6. And that's 2/6 plus 3/6, which is 5/6. This is your final answer for 9. All right, so remember that when you are distributing, when you're multiplying, you keep the base, but you add the exponents together, add them together. And that's why we're looking at common denominators and stuff. Okay. We're moving on to B. And here we're changing these to radical expressions. Remember that whoever holds the exponent gets to be messed with, but like in this case, number 10, the 4 does not hold the exponent, so the 4 is going to come out in front like a multiplier. Remember, powers on top and roots under the ground. So this is 4 square root of x. And you can put x to the first if you want, but you know anything to the first power is really just itself. And number 11, this whole thing is being raised to the 1/2 power. So that means that this whole thing can go inside. But then you actually have to take the square root of it. So the square root of 4 is going to give us 2. And the square root of x to the 6th is x to the 3rd. For 12, again, the 3 is a multiplier, so we're just going to bring the 3 down. The power is on top, root on the bottom, so this is a 4th root of x to the 3rd. You don't need the dot there. You can just have the 3/4 root x to the 3rd. Okay. For 13, this is a negative, which means that the first thing you want to do is take the reciprocal. So that's 1 over a, all raised to the 2/3 power. Remember that you want to do the cubed root first. You always want to root first. So this is cubed root of 1 over a squared. And then when you simplify it, you're just going to square the top, square the bottom. So this is going to end up being the cubed root of 1 over a squared. This one, this whole expression is being raised to the 1/3 power. That means that we can do, this is a cubed root. So we're going to do a cubed root of 8x squared, and that's all raised to the 1st power, so that stays how it is. And I can't take the cubed root of x squared because there's not enough x's to satisfy having groups of 3, but there is a cubed root of 8, and the cubed root of 8 is 2. So we're going to do this part, take the 2 out, and then leave the cubed root of x squared as a multiplier next to it. Next, we're going to rewrite this as a rational exponent. Now, what you have to remember is that everything underneath is raised to whatever the root is. So this would be 5a squared all to the 1/3 power. That works. This one, if you break this apart a little bit, this would be 3 over, and then this would be x, this is a square root, so x to the 1/2. But, and you can leave it like this. Or you can bring this guy upstairs and make it x to the negative 1/2. I think the answer key has it this way. But that was fine too. And on our very last question, we are finding the exponential equation that contains these points. Remember that inside the parenthesis is the x and the outcome is y. So our first coordinate is 1, 30. And our second coordinate is 3, 270. And the way you start this is you're going to write the exponential equation, a times b to the x. You're going to substitute x and y in. So this is going to be 30 equals a times b to the 1st. And then you're going to solve for a. You always solve for a in your first one. So we're going to divide by b to the 1st on both sides. And a is equal to 30 over b to the 1st. We're going to hang on to that for a minute. Then we're going to rewrite our equation over here, except this time we're going to put x, y, and a into this one and solve for b. So the y is 270. The a is 30 over b to the 1st. And this is b to the 3rd. So the one thing that you have to do is kind of reduce the b to the 3rd and the b to the 1st. So one of these cancels with one of these and you get b squared. So then we end up with 270 equals 30b squared. You want to divide both sides by 30 to get b alone. This gives you b squared equals 9. Then you take the square root. And remember that we only want the positive value for the square root because b has to be positive. So b is 3. So our final answer for b is 3. We still need to go back and find a. But the good news is a is equal to, Let's move up this way. A is equal to 30 over b to the first. So this is 30 over 3. So A is 10. So we've got A, we've got B, and now we're ready to write our final equation. When you go to write your final, I'll put it over here because this is where like the good answer spot is. It would be y equals A times B to the x, and our A value we got was 10, and our B value we got was 3. So 10 times 3 to the x, that would be your final answer. Okay, so all of these answers should match the ones that are above. If you have any questions, text me or email me your questions, and I'll be more than happy to explain anything further. Make sure you get your quiz done. Look up the stuff you don't know because it's open notes, and have yourself a wonderful and restful holiday season. See you guys.